Hi guys, it's Alan and welcome back to the Library of Alexandria. And today, guys, is a special bonus video that I wanted to film and get out there today on March 15th, otherwise known as the Ides of March. So today I'm just going to talk about some popular misconceptions about the Romans, starting with the Ides of March. So, everyone has heard beware the Ides of March because we know that Caesar was killed on the Ides of March. Now, the misconception is that the Ides are somehow this kind of like unlucky day, and they're called the Ides because like no one really knows why. They're just called the Ides because that's when Caesar was murdered. This is untrue. The Romans, the Ides is just the name of the 13th or the 15th of every month. Every single month has an Ides. It just happens that the Ides of March is on the 15th. Every other month, the Ides are on the 13th. There are 4 months that have Ides on the 15th: May, March, October, and July. Every other month has Ides on the 13th. Those longer months have Ides on the 15th. So the Ides isn't a special day. He just happened to be killed on the Ides of March. And the reason for this, the reason they call it the Ides, the Romans did not measure their dates like, April 22nd or March 15th. They didn't do that. Instead, they measured up to the next kind of anchor date. So the Romans have 3 anchor dates per month. We have the calends, which is the first day of the month. And then we have the nones, which are either the 5th or 7th of the month, depending on what month it is. And it's those same months that have the Ides on the 15th have the nones on the 7th, and then the ones that have the Ides on the 13th have their nones on the 5th. And then you have the Ides, as I just talked about. So you have those 3 dates. And so the way the Romans wrote their dates was how many days until the next anchor day. So essentially, 2 days ago for us, March 13th, they would not have written March 13th. They would have written 3 days before the Ides of March, because the Romans also were inclusive, so they count the current day. So if you count the 13th, 13, 14, 15. They are very inclusive with their dates, so it would be 3 days before the Ides of March. Now, tomorrow, there are no more anchor dates in March until the calends of April. So tomorrow would not be March 16th. Instead, it would be however many days until the calends of April. If you think of April 1st as March 32nd, you can subtract 16 from 32 to get 16, and then add 1 because they're inclusive. So it would be 17 days before the calends of April, or ADXVII cal.aper. And then for the date, they did not, so until the empire, the Romans didn't really measure, they didn't have numbers for their dates. And this is why it's so hard for us to date a lot of the things, like, especially when there wasn't a ton of journaling or writing, first primary sources, because the dates used to be known by who was consul during any given year. So in the consulship of, Julius and Bibulus or whatever, or in their case, Julius and Caesar. And there's so many people with the same name, it's very hard to keep track because they got new presidents, essentially, 2 consuls every year. So that's how they measure the date. Well, in the empire, finally, with frickin' Livy and his Aberbe Candida, which is a history of Rome from the founding of the city, they started measuring their dates, AUC, Aberbe Candida, from the founding of the city. Rome was founded in 753 BC, and they are inclusive, so you add 1. So add 754 to whatever the current date is, and you would get the date AUC. So today is the Ides of March, EID.MART.2775 AUC, or MMDCCV AUC. There you go. First misconception cleared up. Now, another misconception I want to get, because I see this every year, someone sends me this thing where it's like, why is if Sept, Oct, Nov, and Dec mean 7, 8, 9, 10, why are September, October, November, December the 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th months? And someone who's always an intellectual responds and says, well, actually, Julius Caesar added the month of July, and then Augustus added the month of August, and that's why they got offset. this is not true. And this is why you should listen to me, a scholar, on why this is the case. So the Roman year used to begin in March. That the person that talks about that is right on that. The Roman year used to begin in March, but then the second king of Rome, Numa Pompilius, around the 600s or so BC, added January and February to the beginning of the year. So January was named for Janus, who is the god of beginnings, so he would start the year. And then February is named for Febrilia, which is another fertility goddess, and so that shoved everything back 2 places. So what was the 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th month then became the 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th month. Now, the reason they get stuck on the Julius Caesar thing is because Julius Caesar did rename the 5th month, or the 7th month now. At that point, it was the 7th month. It was called Quintilius because it used to be called the 5th month before it got moved, and he just renamed Quintilius as Julius, and so that's where we get July. And then Augustus, not to be outdone by his grunkle, renamed Sextilius, the 6th month, which is, now at that point the 8th month, he renamed it Augustus, and so that is why we have July and August. They did not add months, they just renamed months that were already there. So now, at your cocktail parties, when someone busts out actually, Julius Caesar added those couple months, and that's why, because, that's the only reason people say that. You can be like, well, actually, let me actually, you're actually, and be like, you wrong, and here is why. And then the last misconception that I hope you actually know, because every year on this date, I've already got one today from my buddy Andrew. Every year on this date, I get memes about a bottle of Caesar dressing with a knife in the back. And I get this meme every year. I'm sure if I checked my phone, I would have more like right now. I always get these, and someone always makes a comment about Caesar dressing. Guys, Caesar dressing isn't named after Julius Caesar. It's not. It's named after a Mexican guy who invented Caesar dressing. And his name happened to be Caesar. It's not named after Julius Caesar. It's just not. It's not. So please, guys, if you send me a Latin joke, I've probably already heard it. There are only 2. There's the one where the Roman centurion walks into a bar and says, asks for, the guy says, how many drinks you want? He does this, and the guy brings him 5 drinks. You know why it's funny? Because this is the Roman numeral for 5. And the other one, centurion walks into a bar and says, hey, I'd like a Martinez. And the bartender's like, don't you mean a martini? And he's like, if I wanted 2, I would have asked for it. Because the I ending is the plural of the US ending in Latin. I've heard those 2 jokes. They're the only ones. And there are a couple others. There are several about Caesar. There's always a pencil holder with some pencils in the back. I've seen it. I get sent it every year. The knife in the Caesar dressing, I get sent every year. I've seen them. So hopefully you are exiting this video a wiser person. I've cleared up some of the misconceptions about the Romans, and do with that what you will. You guys stay safe on Beware the Ides of March, and I'll see you guys next time.